Hey everybody, some really interesting developments coming out of the Pfizer document research. People have been pouring through these documents. This is a really interesting account. They've been censored numerous times. WikiLeaks on Twitter is their new account, and they present their findings here. It says 2 sites stand out from the Pfizer documents randomization log as major anomalies. Site 1231 and Site 4444. It goes on to say the biggest recruiter by far is Site 1231. It's in Argentina. They recruited 4,501 patients. That is 10% of all the patients at just one site. All 4,501 patients were recruited in 3 weeks. You can see on this chart over time how many subjects they have enrolled, recruited at this site. 3 weeks, it gets to 4,501. Then they bring up this log from the ICANN Decide data dump. They were the ones who did the Freedom of Information Act, I believe. Shout out to them as well. So here's some info about Site 1231 from the log. It says, Fernando Pollock, the Hospital Militar Central, which is like the Central Military Hospital, in Argentina. The thread continues. The site is supposed to be the Military Central Hospital. It also has an interesting logo. Oh, actually, what I think WikiLeaks is saying here is that this is David Martin's logo over here, and this is the Central Military Hospital logo. I think this is just a joke, poking fun at David Martin's logo here. Anyway, it seems a bit odd that a principal investigator, who has to be a medical doctor, of a major international study is recruiting 4,500 patients in just 3 weeks at one site without a CRO, which I would guess is Chief Research Officer, and working 7 days a week, no gaps, recruitment every day, including Saturday and Sunday. And interestingly, he tags Brooke Jackson, who is a whistleblower from inside the clinical trial industry, expressing major concerns about one of the Pfizer trial sites, Ventavia. So the WikiLeaks thread continues. Weekend recruitments for a clinical trial would be odd. Staff are needed to fill out many record forms, CRF, I think that's clinical record forms, and there are potential risks to the trial, so you need medical staff. It would be highly unusual. So just to be clear, what we're seeing here is a steady increase over those 3 weeks. So why don't we see some days with more enrollment? It's almost like they're spoofing data. They're making these people up and steadily adding them onto the roster. So here is Pollock, Fernando Pollock's trial CV, which is like your resume. Pfizer at the top, professional mailing address, degree and certification, Johns Hopkins University, William Beaumont Hospital, and then a few hospitals in Buenos Aires. Current position at study site from 2020 to present, associate investigator, board member of the International Respiratory Syncytial Virus Society, ad hoc member of the Product Development for Vaccines Advisory Committee at the World Health Organization in Switzerland, and then also, right here, under Vanderbilt Infectious Disease Division, look at this, RBPAC, Food and Drug Administration. So I believe that that has to do with this meeting here, although I don't know why there's not a V at the beginning of that. Vaccines and Related Biological Products Advisory Committee. So the thread continues. It says, hang on, this is Fernando Pollock, who claims to be at Vanderbilt, USA at the same time, who also happens to make appearances for the FDA. So it says he has financial interests with some of the affected firms identified for this meeting, namely Janssen, Novavax, and Bavarian Nordic. It says he also happens to work for the Infant Foundation and is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the NIH. He is literally the busiest doctor on the planet. And I think we should be skeptical about all of these different roles and if he's actually where he says he is, or if he's just a name to sign off on all the fraudulent counterfeit data. Now this is interesting too, but he managed to find enough time to be the lead author on the BNT162b2 paper with all of Pfizer's scientists. Look at that. Safety and efficacy of the BNT162b2 mRNA COVID-19 vaccine from December 31st, 2020. He's the first name on here, and it's not alphabetical. Fernando P. Pollock. So the thread continues. Yet while doing all this, he managed to find time, presumably single-handedly because no other authors are listed at that site, to recruit 4,500 patients in 3 weeks with a uniform slope, we should add. He managed to find time to recruit 4,500 patients in 3 weeks, with each patient requiring 250 pages of case report forms. So that's what that acronym means that we looked at earlier. Case report forms. So if you multiply these numbers, 4,500 patients, 250 pages each, that is 1 1/8 million pages of case report forms in 3 weeks. But I'm sure that's totally above board until we get to the next totally above board feature of the fastest 44,000 patient study ever in history. Site 4444. WTF is site 4444. There were 270 clinical recruitment sites for the Pfizer vaccine study, numbered consecutively from 1001 to 1270. They are all listed here. This is the last page. There is no site 1271. And there's no site with a number above 1270. So here's page 40 of their 40-page list, comprehensive list of all clinical sites. It says March 17th, 2021 at the bottom. Site identifier, the last in the list, 1270 in California. Well, that's a bit of a problem because there are a lot of entries in the randomization log for site 4444. So why do they reference site 4444 over and over in the document if the sites are consecutive between 1001 and 1270? So they can ascertain, based on this so-called randomization log for site 4444, 1,275 patients tagged with that site, which is about 3% of the total. And they recruited all 1,275 patients in 1 week, from the 22nd to the 27th of September 2020. So here's the chart we looked at earlier from site 1231. So just to be clear, because it confused me for a second here, when they say 1271, this isn't the site we're talking about. That's just to clarify that it cuts off after 1270. The two sites that we're really focusing on here are 1231, which is a site on that list, which you can see here, 1231. And then the other site is 4444, which totally sticks out like a sore thumb because there's not supposed to, according to this, be any sites above 1270. So remember, we saw this site 4444 get all of its patients from September 22nd to September 27th, 2020. And what is magical about the week of September 22nd, 2020? Well, that just happens to be the last week that recruitment can take place for the data cut off for the FDA meeting in December. There's just one problem, though. Well, two, really. The site doesn't exist. It's totally and utterly fabricated. So this is what WikiLeaks is suggesting or alleging. And let's hear them out. There is no principal investigator for site 4444 because it doesn't exist. So what happened at so-called site 4444? WikiLeaks says, my guess, they needed enough numbers of, quote, positive PCR tests in the placebo group to show a difference between groups for that VRB PAC meeting on the 10th of December. And they didn't have them. So site 4444 appeared and gave them their perfect result. So this is the cumulative incidence curves for the first COVID-19 occurrence after dose 1. And one thing that really jumps out is at the end of this experiment, you see this big jump in the placebo cases at the end. These are cumulative incidents of COVID and you see a very steady increase, steady slope, meaning the same each day were being added to the cumulative total until the very end of the study. Oh guys, we're running out of time. Let's get some extra data in there. Make our vax look really good. That's very suspect. And so I'll link to this thread in the description section where you can go read all of these documents yourself. But as said here, major anomalies in Site 1231 and Site 4444. And let's just reiterate, Site 4444 is so far out of the realm of what they have listed that this seems like a huge scandal. At the very end, the last week that they could enroll people, they threw them all in Site 4444. So thanks everybody for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. Feel free to share this video. Have a great rest of your day.